Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and I have to admit, I can't say that I am reeling off of last night's Dallas Mavericks loss, given that I picked them to win this series in 6. I have to say I am shaken a touch. Nonetheless, I'm sticking with my pick. More on Dallas and Boston in just a second. Something I give Boston a ton of credit on in this series, particularly last night, that they're baiting Dallas into doing. And ironically, it actually relates to all of us. I'll detail that in just a second. Also, Caitlin Clark being left off of Team USA's women's squad. I'll talk about that in about 12 minutes, why I don't think it's nearly as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. But I actually think the entire conversation around this particular situation speaks as high of Caitlin Clark as anything, and not the fact that she was left off Team USA. Discuss that in 12 minutes. Also, getting into Luka and Kyrie, or not just Luka and Kyrie, actually, Jayson Tatum, who has struggled badly, almost historically badly in the NBA Finals. I'd say this is as big of a Jayson Tatum fan as anybody, but I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't wavering just a touch on Jayson Tatum. Discuss that later on today's show. I'll predict Game 3. So again, Carving It Up is usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. During the finals, though, started this last week, going to continue it throughout the finals. We're going to be doing Monday, Thursday, Friday, just given how the final schedule is structured. So no show Wednesday. So again, game 3 is on Wednesday. We'll be reacting to Game 3 on Thursday. So I'll predict that at the end of today's show. And also, Dan Hurley announced today he is not going to take the Los Angeles Lakers job. And I was thinking about this Lakers situation, and it's like, when I was prepping my show, I'm like, oh my God, like the ultimate, you dummy, talking to myself, like, how did you not see, not Dan Hurley necessarily, but about the Lakers and their coaching search, or coaching searches of years past. Discuss that later on in today's show. Looks like we got some activity in the comment section. Patrick Brown, happy Monday, everyone. Hope y'all are well mentally and physically. I am feeling great, Patrick. I am feeling energized, excited. Honest to God, the best I've felt physically in probably 2 weeks. So I feel good, and I'm ready to go. But first, so Boston wins Game 2, and I want you to think about your life for just a second. Now, I'm not going to some like deep sort of discussion here, but stay with me. Something that I think all human beings have in common, to some degree or another, we all have something called a bad habit. Everybody's got them. It can be as simple as biting your fingernails. I have a terrible bad habit of like really biting my lip when I'm getting nervous. Like if I'm watching a Golden State Warriors game, I kind of like bite the bottom of my lip. Like, no, it's like, Bryson, stop it. That doesn't help anything. It's not going to help the team win. It can be, not to go too dark, but it can be as serious though as smoking or something that could potentially be classified as an addiction, more than a bad habit. And when forced, everybody tries to break the bad habit, but when faced against adversity, when really put to the test, you see, okay, how far have you removed yourself from this bad habit? It's a tale of when you face adversity, how much does that bad habit come into the fray, or how much have you distanced yourself from it? And what the Dallas Mavericks, what's going on with them right now, is the fact that Boston, because of their defense, and specifically on Boston's defense, more so the half-court defense, has put Dallas back into their old bad habits. What do I mean by that? Part of the reason that I have been as high on the Mavericks all season, or not, that's a lie, not all season long, because I don't even think I had Dallas making the playoffs this season coming in. But at about late March, early April, I did a list, like going into the playoffs or like toward the playoffs. I did my top 10 teams in the NBA. Top 10 teams in the NBA going in the playoffs. I had the Denver Nuggets at number 1. Clearly, I was wrong on that. They couldn't even get out of round 2. Couldn't even beat Minnesota of all teams. I had the Boston Celtics at number 2. I had the Dallas Mavericks at number 3. You can go back and look at it. That was my list. That was my top 3. And part of the reason for that was the fact that Dallas had gone from being a Luka-centric, it's Luka or die, number 77, we have to go through him in every way, shape, or form, or we are cooked, because everything starts and ends with him. The ball dominance is off the charts. But over the last, really post-All-Star break, ever since Jason Kidd makes some tweaks to the starting lineup, they added Daniel Gafford, who I thought played pretty well last night. They added P.J. Washington, who's been arguably their third best player this year in the playoffs. You now see a Dallas Mavericks team. You had seen a Dallas Mavericks team that was, obviously Luka's the best player. Nobody's denying that. but it was giving Kyrie a better chance to be successful. You were seeing Derrick Jones Jr., the lob king. Daniel Gafford, the shot blocking extraordinaire. He also loves to catch lobs from Luka and Kyrie Irving. Because Boston's half-court defense has been led by Drew Holiday, led by Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and one thing that I really missed on this finals thus far was, okay, whoever guards Luka and Kyrie, man, offensively, they're just not going to be the same. Why I didn't factor in the fact, and props to Joe Mazzulla for saying, the heck, guys, I've got a bunch of long, athletic defenders, Tatum, Brown, obviously Derek White, Drew Holiday, who I've been a fan of for years. I love Drew Holiday. Even Porzingis can guard the pick and roll. He can, defend the perimeter if necessary, and we know the shot blocker extraordinaire that he is on the defensive end. He said, I'm just going to throw everybody at Luka and Kyrie. Wear them down with fresher defenders, which is a props to Joe Mazzulla, who I think has done a really, really good job coaching in this series. But it has been, because Dallas has actually played really good defense this series. If you look at it, obviously they gave up 107 to Boston in game 1, 105 in game 2. In today's NBA, that's good defense. Now, you could argue Boston can't hit anything from three-point range, neither can Dallas. You have to imagine one of those two teams will get out of those shooting slumps, maybe as soon as game 3. Why Dallas isn't grabbing the ball off the rim, off a miss, because again, Boston missed plenty of threes. What did they go, 10 for 39? Last night, I believe, was the final box score. 10 of 39, 20, just over 25% did the Boston Celtics shoot from three-point range. Grab the ball off the rim and go. Now, some of that, we saw the block, which was it a foul? Maybe you can make a case. It's go either way. You know my rule. If it's a go either way play in the last 5 minutes of a game, don't call it. The block on, I guess it was P.J. Washington, down that end of the floor, down the left end of the floor by Derek White and Jaylen Brown, right? But kind of both got a hand on it. You could argue that the defensive presence of Boston has kind of affected those shots, but at the same time, we see the best out of Dallas. I've thrown out the stat time and time for about a month on the show. We could show it to you right here. When Luka Doncic's usage rate is 30% or below, the Dallas Mavericks are 10-0. They average 118 points per game. They give up about 108 points per game, which is about a little less. They're actually giving up less than that in this series. Luka's numbers are still great. 25, 9, and 8 on basically for roundup. 26, 10, and 8 on 46% for the field, darn near 40% from three-point range. They're a better basketball team, and Luka is just as great, even when they're not running absolutely everything through him. Which is why you're seeing a lesser Kyrie Irving to degree in the series. Not to take the onus off of Kyrie. Kyrie has not played well, and clearly the Boston thing is really, really in his head. But that, to me, has been the biggest flaw that I've seen for the Dallas Mavericks in the series. And you give credit to Boston. You give credit to Brad Stevens, the executive of the year. And listen, Brad Stevens is probably the closest thing in the last decade in the modern NBA that we know it to be today. Brad Stevens, to me, might be the closest thing to Steve Kerr since Steve Kerr. Because people forget, before Coach Kerr was broadcasting at TNT and it was one of the most beloved announcers in the NBA, Steve Kerr ran the Phoenix Suns. Steve Kerr put together that Nash, Amari Stoudemire. Those were some great Suns teams that nearly beat the Lakers and could have easily won a championship in that span. Brad Stevens is almost like the reverse, except he's done it with the same organization, where he's an excellent coach and his time in Boston realizes, okay, maybe my voice is running a little hollow in the locker room. I'm going to step back, focus more on roster construction. Obviously, you had Ime Udoka. That fizzled out for off-court reasons after a year. Then you have Joe Mazzulla, kind of a last-second hire because of the Udoka situation. And Brad Stevens, cool, calm, collected as he presents such an exterior. He's aggressive. And what I always say is this, and it's I don't know why more teams don't imply it. I guess fear of getting criticized by nobodies on the internet or local talk radio shows. My thing is, who cares? I'm in it to win it. Aggressive wins in sports. And sometimes it doesn't, but you gave it the go. I was on with my man Tim Barnard last night. Please go subscribe to the Grid Network, which is where his podcast is at. But follow him on social media, Boston Sports Summit. He did a live stream reaction to Game 2 last night. Massive Celtics fan. I was on his show throughout the fourth quarter. And he's not exactly the biggest Marcus Smart fan. And sort of what I was saying was like, Celtics made a finals with Marcus Smart. They made a handful of Eastern Conference finals with Marcus Smart. But they saw, okay, Tatum's great. By and large, tends to be great in the playoffs. I've done segments on that in this show. More on Tatum later in the show in his final struggles. Jaylen Brown, really good, can be great. Roster, really good. We added Derek White, Al Horford came back, all of this. But we're just not, because Tatum, as great as he is not a Luka, it's not a Jokic, it's not a Giannis. I've always said that. May need to add just a couple more pieces. And we take a big swing with Kristaps Porzingis, which I remember talking about last June when that move got made. I'm like, it's risky. Porzingis has the injury history, but I know what it looks like with Marcus Smart. There's a ceiling on that. At least give it a go with Porzingis. Now, Porzingis is hurt in the series, which could be proved to be, hurtful to Boston. We'll see what happens as time goes on. But then the big one. The Boston Celtics take Jrue Holiday from what was believed to be at the time he went to Portland, but eventually ended up in Boston through the Dame trade. What was thought to be the biggest contender and the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics. They took their best defender, their best two-way player, second best two-way player to Giannis, in Jrue Holiday, who, again, I've been a fan of Jrue for a long time. He was, to me, the MVP of this game for Boston. Jrue Holiday last night, how about 26 points and 11 rebounds, 11 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from three-point range. I believe he was the only outside Peyton Pritchard who hit the half-court shot at the end of the third quarter. Jrue Holiday, only Celtic to shoot over 50% from three-point range, which isn't saying much because the rest shot horribly from three. Aggressive wins in sports. I've always liked the Celtics roster construction. It's the very reason I had them going to the finals before the season. And they've taken Dallas not only out of their comfort zone, but when someone's taken out of their comfort zone, a lot of times they will revert back to bad habits. That is what the Mavericks are doing. And it's why part of the reason I picked Dallas to win the series, which for the record, I'm going to look this camera dead center. And there's Mike right in front of me and say, I still believe the Mavericks win the series. Why do I believe that? A, because I believe in pick integrity. You do not move off a pick until your pick is either proven correctly or goes down into the ocean with no life found. Is the fact that Luka's been great, but Luka's always great. Look at his playoff numbers. Luka's always great in the playoffs with few exceptions. That in the fourth quarter of this series, and I'll show you all stats provided by our friends at StatMuse, all graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. My belief is this. Because Jason Kidd's a great coach, I think we'll make the requisite adjustments in terms of pushing the ball in transition more often, and we'll play more of a fast, up-tempo style of offense. Put up the number of what Kyrie and Luka is doing in the fourth quarter of this series. It's anti-everything they've been in the playoffs. Luka and Kyrie combined the fourth quarter of these NBA Finals. 10 points, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, 3 for 10 from the field, 0 for 4 from three-point range. My guess and my belief is that going to this more team-oriented with Luka as the head of the snake offense, which they've been running for a long time, for the last 2 to 3 months or so, Luka won't have to be as relied upon, especially given that he's beat up. You'll then see a better Kyrie. I think Kyrie being back on his home floor in Boston will settle him down a little bit. The Boston thing, again, is clearly in his head. He doesn't seem to be embracing, which I know the history is different. I understand that. But he doesn't seem to be embracing it the way a Kobe did, the way a Steph Curry did, the way a LeBron James did. Now, for the record, Kyrie's obviously not in that level. But you would like to see maybe him sort of channel that into, I'm going to use this as like a springboard to me playing well. The Boston sort of back and forth, as opposed to it's the only thing I'm focusing on. So I think I'm going to predict game 3 later in the show. I still think Dallas is going to win this series. I do not move off that pick because I believe in pick integrity, and I do believe they're a matchup they can still exploit. But kudos to the Boston Celtics. This has to do with roster construction. This has to do with the fact that, like any great basketball, like any great professional team or person in any competitive field, the truly great ones take you out of what you're comfortable doing and revert you back to bad habits. And that's what Boston's done. And you give them massive credit for it. Got some comments up in here. Patrick Brown. Considering Boston shot under 30% from the three-point line and still won in spite of Jayson Tatum's bad play. And that's, by the way, too, is the first, and I told Tim this on the show last night on his live stream on the grid. I said, I got nervous when, looks like we're doing some connection stuff. I got nervous in that game when I thought Kyrie seemed to be at least a little calmer. He seemed to kind of unravel there in the second half. Luka played a phenomenal first half. And not only is the game close, they're down. I'm like, oh my God, like this is... Now, again, some of that is the fact that Dallas shot horribly from three. Like, as poorly as Boston shot from the three-point line, right? 10 of 39. Dallas was even worse, 6 of 26. And obviously, Boston's going to shoot more threes because the three is, I think, more a part of Boston's offense than any offense in the NBA. They kind of live and die by it. They mostly live by it because they got some great shooters. Patrick Brown, Derek White's block saved Boston's bacon. I wouldn't say it saved their bacon necessarily. I would say that it sealed the deal. Because even Washington is able to finish that, or there's a foul and he gets his free throws. It's a 3-point game with 40 seconds left. Boston still got a much better chance than not of winning that basketball game. Now, would I put it past Luka to hit a game-tying shot and we go to overtime? No, of course not, because he's hit a lot of those shots. But massive play by Derek White. Kudos to him. He's been, what an addition from San Antonio 2 years ago, man. Wow. Brad Stevens pushed all the right buttons from the front office, man. Grady Edwards, what's up, Grady? I still think they, talking about the Mavericks, win the next 2 games. No series is over after 2-0. And I do know this, that if I have the stat right, that only, is it 5 teams? I think it's 5 teams in the history of the NBA Finals have come back from a 2-0 deficit to win the series. So you got the 69 Celtics, came back from 0-2 to beat the Lakers in 1969. You had the 77 which 69 Lakers, obviously, or 69 Celtics. That was, I think, at the very end of Bill Russell's career. I don't know if he was a player coach by this point. I think that was around that time. You had, obviously, those loaded Celtics teams in the 50s and 60s. You had the 77 Blazers, came back from 0-2 to beat the Philadelphia 76ers. That was, God rest his soul, Bill Walton teams. And God rest Bill Russell's soul as well, of course. The 06 Heat, which was, to me, the pinnacle of Dwayne Wade's career, where you're down 0-2, Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavs are, I think, generally looked at as the better team, and you got this kid out of Marquette in year 3 leading a team to a title down 0-2. Don't remind me, the 2016 Cavs are not only down 2-0, they were down 3-1 in 2016, coming back to beat my Warriors. I don't want to talk about it. And if you want to be sort of optimistic, if you're a Celtics fan, if you're a Mavs fan, last team that was down 0-2 in an NBA Finals won the series. 2021 Milwaukee Bucks against the Phoenix Suns. They were down 0-2, won out from there. I don't know if Dallas wins out from there, but that would be incredibly difficult to do given how great Boston's looked all season long. I don't think Boston lost. Did Boston lose 3 straight this season? They may have at one point in like February or March or something. I know they had some weird losses to Atlanta without Trae Young, but aside from that, they've been pretty rock solid. But I guess one of the things for me to be a little nervous about as a guy who picked the Mavs is the fact that Boston has been, I don't want to say phenomenal on the road because they've had some weird close calls against Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton. But if you go back to 2022, the numbers bear it out. They're a better team on the road than they are at home. They just are. I don't know why. I theorize that that's because Dallas is, or because Boston is the type of classic team that is excellent, loaded from top to bottom. Again, not the greatest bench in the world. Sam Hauser, some rough minutes out there. Al Horford's giving you what he can at 38 years of age. But obviously the best starting 5 in basketball, I think that's been generally acknowledged throughout the course of this NBA season, is because they're so good, but because they don't have that absolute, and I think the one knock on Tatum, which is the fair one that I've always acknowledged, is he's not the typical ice-cold, cold-blooded killer that other leaders of historically great teams are. And I don't think the Celtics, this year's Celtics, are historically great, but they play up to the level of competition if they're facing a worthy opponent. The Mavs are clearly that. We saw what the Mavs did in order to get to this point in the finals. On the other side of the coin, they play down to their competition if they think, we can just steamroll these guys. Let's start dealing with connection issues. Hopefully we can get back up as soon as possible. Sometimes, man, throughout my show, it's usually like 20 minutes in, man. It'll just go all pixely. I'll look at some comments here, see if we can. Boston Sports Summit, Tim Barnard was on his show last night. I don't know what the connection problems are. He says, I don't know how anyone could pick the Mavs if the Celtics dominated game 1 and they couldn't at the Ocean last night and yet still won. It's because, and again, by the way, I'm not saying Boston should be favored to win the series. Duh. They got to win twice in 5 tries. The Mavs got to win 4 times in 5 tries. It's just basic math. But is the fact that Dallas actually shot worse than Boston from 3-point range. Kyrie, again, the whole Boston thing, clearly that's, if there's any opportunity, if there's any hope for Kyrie to play better, particularly on the defensive end, because him and Luka have gotten worked on the defensive end, is the fact that in the friendly confines of Dallas, home crowd on your side, again, stark contrast from Boston, obviously. Take a deep breath. I imagine Luka will help him kind of reinforce that confidence in Kyrie Irving, and you'll get a better version of himself. You'll get a better version of Kyrie in Game 3, certainly, than what we've seen in the first 2 games. But Kyrie thus far in the series, I know he's 0 for 3 last night from 3-point range. I'm almost certain he didn't hit a 3 in Game 1. So that would be a combined 0 for 8 from 3-point range is Kyrie in this NBA final. So he's got to step it up. Grady. Oh, interesting. He responds to Tim about I don't know how anybody could not pick the Celtics to win. Grady says, because, Tim, the Celtics have Joe Mazzulla. If anyone can let the Mavs back in the series, it's him. Listen, I have been about as big of a Joe Mazzulla critic as anybody, and lack of adjustments, all of that. And he hasn't really been put in a position all playoffs long, by the way, to the credit of his basketball team, because they're excellent, to really be in a, man, coach, we need you to come through with a big-time shift here. I always say the Steve Kerr Game 4 of the 15 finals, putting Andre Iguodala in the starting lineup is one of the greatest adjustments I've ever seen in a 7-game series. I've seen it throughout the finals. Is the fact that, yes, he hasn't necessarily made the adjustments, and again, we'll see if he's even put in a position to, because I think Dallas is going to make this a series again, is the fact that the Boston being able to kind of take Dallas out of their comfort zone, put them into the half court as opposed to the transition game, which I'd really like to see them play more of in game 3, is a credit to the coaches, obviously a credit to the players, because they're about as well constructed a team as you could possibly ask for. In today's NBA, which I'll get into Caitlin Clark just a second. I know I'm sort of milking this segment, but what I do want to say is this, and I've been vocal about this since last year on the show, that I don't know if I've ever disagreed, and I think Adam Silver's the best commissioner in sports, for the record, but I don't know if I've ever disagreed with how a CBA is structured in my life more than the last one, as it pertains to how you're allowed to construct a basketball team. Like, I've always been of the mindset that, not to get into a whole segment here, but just follow me, that the whole point of a draft in any sport is to draft a kid out of college, or, in the case of the NBA, from around the world, just whoever the most talented player you believe is, or who fits your team the best, is draft that guy, develop him. The whole point of us drafting him is to hope he's part of our future. And I think the new CBA, actually, I know the new CBA really, really punishes teams that draft really well. So if you think about, say, Oklahoma City has aced the draft the last few years. Think about, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was through trade, but Chet Holmgren. You think about guys like Jalen Williams. They have really, and they got more draft picks to come. Eventually, they're going to have to pay those guys. And I believe if the guy was drafted by that particular team, then it should not count as much against the salary cap if you retain him, because you found him. This isn't a Miami Heat signed LeBron James when everybody knew LeBron was good. Or good's another same, amazing. It wasn't like when the Warriors signed KD and everybody knew KD was amazing. This is you saw this kid in the draft. You thought he was going to be great. You developed him. I think a team should be rewarded in their salary cap for that. And so I do kind of enjoy seeing the fact that Boston, again, obviously they drafted Tatum, Brown. Holiday wasn't originally a Celtic. Porzingis, Derek White, Al Horford. But the fact that they've been able to put together a roster that is as close to, in today's modern NBA, as loaded as you could have. I'm a stickler for dynasties. I love dominance. I do. I love a villain. Boston's not really a villain. The Celtics, at least this particular Celtics team, is. So that's kind of where I'm at. Is I hate the new CBA. Hate it. Absolutely despise it. Tim, responding to Grady. And you think Kidd is better? I would say that trying to divide Tatum and Brown after Game 1 was him realizing how deep the Celtics are and that they don't stand a chance unless Tatum shoots Boston out of it. I will talk about Tatum in our third segment, because I interested in getting to him because I think this is the first time as a Tatum fan that I'm like, I think I'm just going to have to accept something. And it goes to what I said, by the way, earlier, and I'll get more into this later in about 10 minutes, that it is stubborn, in my estimation, that if Tatum has a great series, that the Tatum haters, quote unquote, don't readjust their opinion. And also, if Tatum has a bad series, which shooting-wise, he's having a horrible series, I'll throw out the numbers later, that Tatum supporters like myself don't readjust our opinion of him. It's like, okay, I had a preconceived notion of Tatum. I get continuous data or data affirming the opposite. I don't have to change my opinion necessarily, but I do have to adjust it a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I'd say it's emotionally mature. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. So Caitlin Clark was left off Team USA. It was announced it seemed like in the middle of the night by Shams Charania over the weekend after Caitlin, by the way, had I watched this game in its entirety against the Washington Mystics because I predicted, you can go back and check this, last Monday, after Caitlin had a rough shooting performance, there was a whole Kennedy Carter controversy and all that, but the next game, she was awful, 1 for 10 for the field against the New York Liberty, and I said, okay, everybody's not panicking, but it's like, oh, Caitlin's inefficient, blah, blah, blah. I said, here's the problem. She's played 11 games in 20 days. She needs a breather, especially given the fact that she was in March Madness a week before she was drafted, right? She got the breather. She got 4 days off, and I said Caitlin was going to go berserk against the Washington Mystics. Well, look what she did against the Washington Mystics on Friday night. What was a really entertaining game. Two worst teams in the NBA record-wise, but very entertaining game nonetheless. How about 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists, 8 for 15 from the field, and 7 for 13 from three-point range. By the way, playing 39 of the 40 minutes in this basketball game. So she's playing high minutes, but she got a breather, and you saw what she was capable of doing. And that's something that's going to be really beneficial for her and the Fever moving forward, is the fact that the schedule doesn't lighten up in terms of competition, but it lightens up in terms of they got no more back-to-backs. They're not playing these crazy, just the schedule condensed into a 20-day stretch where at one point the Fever played 11 games and the defending champion, back-to-back defending champion Aces, had played 6 games. It's like, guys, I get we want to see Caitlin Clark on TV, but athletes need rest, and she's got it. And so it was announced she was left off of Team USA. So I was thinking about this, and I was looking at the roster, and Team USA has it on their website. I can go ahead and read the list. There's 12 players. So you got Ariel Atkins. I'm sorry, is this the wrong team? My bad. I think I got the wrong team. No, this is the right team. My bad. Okay. Ariel Atkins. You got Shakira Austin, Aaliyah Boston, Chelsea Gray, Brittany Griner, Ryan Howard, Sabrina Ionescu, Jewel Lloyd, Kelsey Plum, Brianna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, Asia Wilson, best player in the league, by the way. Jackie Young, Shell Reeves is the head coach of this team. Caitlin Clark did not make it. So first of all, okay, so I'll start on her not making Team USA first, and then I'll kind of go into the larger conversation that I think is actually a credit to Caitlin Clark and how she's entered a pantheon of athletes that I'll detail it. Just so for her not making Team USA, first and foremost, and this has been widely reported by Shams and by every other source. If I can pull up this tweet, because I think it does allow us to, as Caitlin did before her game against the Washington Mystics, take a breather. Here's the report. The Caitlin Clark is one of the first 2 reserves in case, knock on wood, nobody gets hurt. But if somebody gets hurt or somebody has to pull out of the Olympics, whatever the case may be, that Caitlin is the most likely choice to replace them. So Caitlin may still be in the Olympics. This is not a done deal. The Olympics start, I think, middle to late July. So it's June 10th today. We still got a month and a half. So again, God forbid, knock on wood, nobody gets injured. But she still very well could be in Paris, France for the Olympics. As far as her not making the team, so there are, I counted this today. Let me count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Half the team are guards. Okay, half the team are guards. Jackie Young, Diana Taurasi, Kelsey Plum, Jewel Lloyd. Jewel Lloyd's one of my favorite players in the league. She's excellent. Sabrina Ionescu and Ryan Howard. Matter of fact, I think I actually missed Ariel Atkins earlier and she is a guard. So I'm actually incorrect. 7 of the 12 players are guards. And we don't have a graphic to show this because I thought it looked too condensed and too messy. But if you compare her stats to those 7 guards, they're darn near identical, but Caitlin has much more turnovers and is far less efficient. Now, the argument I'm hearing, well, given the growth that Caitlin has spearheaded for the WNBA and for women's basketball as a whole, we saw the ratings for college. I remember the national championship against South Carolina that Iowa played. It was not able to come away with the title. Would have been, if it were a college football game in theory, would have been the second most watched regular season game to Ohio State and Michigan. Like it got that high of a number. I think it was like 18 mil or something. What I would say to those who say, well, it's not always the 12 best players. I mean, you had, what's his name? Christian Laettner make the 92 Dream Team when either Isaiah Thomas or Shaq were clearly, I think it was Shaq. Was it Shaq in 92 or 96? I think it was Isaiah Thomas certainly didn't make it in 92, and that was covered in The Last Dance, where Isaiah Thomas was clearly one of the 12 best players, didn't make the team. Christian Laettner did. And it was more of a popularity thing. Christian Laettner was the villain in college at Duke. He was the best player in college basketball at that point. Certainly the most discussed and polarizing. Similar to Caitlin Clark to a certain degree, although Caitlin was more accomplished from what I've read. It goes back to a saying that applies to anything in life, where obviously Christian Laettner being on the Dream Team was a mistake. That's like the one tarnish. Like you look at Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Christian Laettner. What? How did Christian Laettner make the team? How did that occur? Right? Don't repeat a past mistake with a future mistake to validate the past mistake. Because then you're wrong essentially 3 times. You're wrong with the first mistake, you're wrong with the second one, and you're wrong again for using the second one to validate the first. Is Caitlin Clark fringe good enough to be on Team USA? Darn right she is. She's easily in what's been a great rookie class. Cameron Brink's number 2 in blocks. Angel Reese is number 4 or 5 in rebounds. Caitlin's been the best player. No question about it. Yeah, best rookie, obviously. First of all, I think Caitlin needs a breather. She came off a college season that started in November, went all the way to early April. She played her first WNBA game in mid-May and played 11 of her first games in a 20-day stretch. She's played a lot of basketball with very little time to rest. And we know the Olympics happens in the middle of the WNBA season, so the league takes a hiatus until the Olympics conclude. But what I was thinking about was this. Because people are getting pretty worked up about this. How could you not put Caitlin Clark on the team? And given the growth for women's basketball. Well, first of all, she's not going to play that much. She would get minutes, not significant minutes. Is the fact that as far as this entire discussion around this particular situation, it's a credit to Caitlin Clark, but not in the way you might think. Not in the way that, oh, everybody loves her, wants her to be on the team. It's not as cut and dry as that. It's that Caitlin Clark, for better or for worse, has entered a discussion of athletes, or a group of athletes, where you can't have a conversation about them without somebody getting really riled up about it. The greatest example of that in my mind, and I've never seen anything, or honestly, you could probably put 2 players, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I say their names, is I've never seen anything like it in my life, where you can't discuss these players without either over-the-top praise or over-the-top criticism. The names of those players are LeBron James and Michael Jordan. The GOAT debate. It's the most polarizing debate in sports, not even close. People will debate it until the cows come home, until somebody else, I don't know, maybe Wemby does it, I don't know, unless somebody else enters their name into that discussion. And we get just, the Jordan or LeBron haters, if you give them one little compliment, they try and shut it down. And if you say they're the greatest ever, people's heads want to explode. Like it's Caitlin hasn't gotten there yet, but you could talk about last week with the Kennedy Carter situation, the Angel Reese, all of that. People, and I talked about this on Wednesday. I've never seen anything like this in my life where It's like the media, sports and otherwise, doesn't know how to handle it. And I'm more critical of the sports media because they're used to this kind of thing, to an up-and-coming potential superstar who's taken an entire sport by storm and has brought a new level of notoriety and viewership to it. Tiger did it in golf. Serena did it in women's tennis. Like Michael Phelps did it for swimming. Like the whole bit is just cover them, Caitlyn, Angel, Kennedy Carter, everybody, the same way, and that controversy as a whole, the same way you cover it for the NBA. That's all I'm asking. We've seen rookie hazing in the NBA and the WNBA. We've seen over-the-top physical plays in the NBA and the WNBA. This is not the first time we've ever seen a flagrant foul in our lifetimes. Trust me, the 80s and the 90s, which people think is the greatest era ever, is actually some of the worst basketball ever played, was, outside the Bulls and the Jazz, was just nothing but flagrant fouls, or what would be deemed flagrant fouls today. So we hate it with Caitlyn. We love it for the 90s. It's the greatest era of basketball. It's inconsistent. It's the same reason I say the people who romanticize the 90s hate Draymond Green. It's inconsistent. Those two things do not work in sequence. Because there's a lot of Draymond Greens, just not as skilled in the 90s. But coming back to Caitlyn, and again, this is why I say it's for better or for worse. It has, and I won't go too deep into this, but it has almost become a pseudo culture war where you have one group of people take Caitlyn Clark's side, you have the other group of people take Angel Reese's side. It becomes polarizing. There's obviously the racial dynamic into it, and it just plays into the divides we see every single day, when in reality, I think we need to embrace Caitlyn for what she is. The up-and-coming superstar who within 2 to 3 years is probably going to be the best player in the WNBA, although A'ja Wilson is going to have something to say about that. She's awesome. And certainly is already the most popular player in the WNBA. And Angel Reese is the classic villain. Just like Draymond Green, just like Dennis Rodman. By the way, without the off-court stuff that and I love Draymond, that's my guy, but without the off-court baggage that some of those guys have. Embrace the league, embrace the WNBA, cover women the same way you would cover men, in the sense of let the criticism be fair, let your takes be strong, but let's not get worked up to the point where it's just, I was watching First Take this morning on ESPN, and it's like, again, it's like some men don't know how to cover this. It's really not that complicated. Caitlyn is taking the league by storm from a popularity standpoint. She's the best rookie. She's coming, man. She didn't make the team. And by the way, she still may make the team. Like, that's the thing. All the reports are saying she's like one of the first replacements. So she very well could be in Paris for the 2024 Olympic Games. That's well within the realm of possibility. And so I don't think this story is nearly as polarizing. Not Caitlyn or the WNBA story. I don't think this in particular, Caitlyn Clark not making Team USA, is nearly as polarizing as the media may want you to believe. I really, really don't. And so, and I hate some of the directions that the conversation has gone. It's been honestly kind of discouraging, because I've covered Caitlyn Clark on Carving It Up for a year, ever since the 2023 tournament. And I found her a compelling athlete, a fun story. The women's basketball rise has been a blast to watch. And it feels like, and I blame both sides equally for this, politically, yes, for turning it into something that it really doesn't have to be. It doesn't. So that's my take on it. Got some comments here. Okay, Grady says, this is kind of a side topic, but if a team wanted to offer LeBron James part ownership of their franchise, is a pitch to come with that? Is that within the rules as he is a free agent this summer? I don't know what the rules are today. I know the fact that Michael Jordan was a part owner of the Washington Wizards and had say over personnel. And not that LeBron has it, but LeBron wasn't in an official ownership role in Cleveland and Miami. And obviously MJ was with the Wizards. So I don't think that's, if it were to occur, I don't think that'd be breaking the rules as far as I'm far as I'm aware, because if Jordan did it, now again, I don't know if the CBA has changed. There's a lot that's gone on in that regard. Let's see. Tim, I would take a 22-year-old Caitlin Clark over an old retired 42-year-old Diana Taurasi. Today, I agree. And it's funny, they actually did a statistical comparison of the two. And the numbers are, so basically, points, shooting percentage, and I think three-point percentage are like basically the same for the two. Whereas Caitlin has way more assists than Taurasi, but Taurasi has way less turnovers than Caitlin. And so they're basically having the same season. I'm okay with them giving the nod to Taurasi just because she has been a part of all those Olympics teams. It's sort of you give the nod to the legend. This will undoubtedly be Taurasi's last Olympics. And so sort of giving him this one last ride, get one more gold medal, and because she's been one of the pioneers of the WNBA. She didn't come in the WNBA when it was first founded, when I think it was 1997, I think it was, or the first game was played in 1997, if I recall correctly. But, like, for example, if, let's say there was an American-born player that garnered the same level of notoriety for the NBA that Caitlin does for the WNBA. And let's say LeBron wasn't the same player, because LeBron averaged 25, 8, and 7 this season. Let's say LeBron averaged 19, 5, and 6. And that mirrored the numbers of the young guy. I think it should go to LeBron. Just for seniority, all of that. Give the nod to the guy who's been there, who's put in the hard time, the hard work. Not that the guy in the future isn't going to do the same as well, but give him the nod. He's still obviously good enough to be on the team. Taurasi's had a good season by all accounts. Not peak Taurasi, but she is 42. And so that's kind of my take. I don't think... Is Caitlin better today? Probably. Now, again, a 22-year-old probably should be better than a 42-year-old by definition. But I'm okay with them giving Taurasi the nod just because the hard blood, sweat, and tears she put for Team USA. Team USA women's never lost a game. Never lost a game in the Olympics. And Taurasi's obviously been a big part of that. Grady, here's my honest opinion why the WNBA doesn't like Caitlin Clark. It's no secret the WNBA teams to be very leftist and woke liberal. Caitlin Clark doesn't fit that mold, and nobody wants to say it. Bryson, very few times do I have that opinion. I normally laugh at people who say that to an extent, but this is the one time where I say it might be true to a large extent. She doesn't complain, and she's very likable. I would say the problem the WNBA has had in the past, because a lot of their stars complain and are very unlikable and take a victim mentality. So there's lots to unpack there. I would argue, because you made a point there at the end. Stars complain. Stars have been complaining in every sport. Basically, I think part of the reason the NFL, this does sort of go to your point, Grady, part of the reason the NFL is so appealing is because most of the dudes, and part of it's just the culture of football, is, hey, I don't care, put your gym strap on, go out there and play. So that's kind of more part of the football culture than it is the baseball culture, the soccer culture, the basketball culture. I do disagree about, and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think it was, when I think there was the Jamel Hill article and there was a lot of controversy around it. And my take sort of was, I don't, like, for example, if a white dude came in the NBA, again, sort of to go back to if LeBron was a lesser player at this stage and age of his career and a kid came in and mirrored his stats, right? Let's say there was a white kid. Because the NBA does tend to, if you want to say a leftist league, yeah, the NBA certainly does lean that way. That's no secret. I don't think there would be serious animosity. And to be honest, again, part of the animosity, Grady, is not Caitlin's fault, and it's not the player's fault. And you can put some of the blame on the media. Not all of it's the media's fault. When a person comes into a corporation, into a business which the WNBA is a private corporation and private business. And this person, Caitlin Clark, is dubbed as the savior of the league. And by the way, was she going to bring eyeballs to the league? Yeah, duh. We saw the draft numbers. We saw the college basketball numbers, of course. But when you have an A'ja Wilson, easily the best player in the WNBA, at least as far as I could tell. Her accomplishments speak for themselves. Breanna Stewart's excellent. Sabrina Ionescu has been one of my favorites since she was at Oregon. That when you have somebody who's never played a dribble of professional basketball with the Nike contract, with the media notoriety, the attention. By the way, the same darn thing applies to LeBron James when he came in 2003. There was serious animosity in his own locker room. Go back and look at those. I don't think it was Antoine James. No, who was it? I'm forgetting the names of some of those Cavs players on those 02, 03 Cavs teams that were terrible. That's why they got LeBron. And when you have a kid who's deemed the chosen one, the successor to Michael Jordan, the guy who's never played 18 years old, never played a dribble of NBA basketball, and you're telling me he's going to come into my locker room, and there was animosity towards LeBron in Cleveland, serious animosity, and around the NBA. This is why I say I don't think it's that different from Caitlyn. Now, the thing is, here's the difference. You can't bully LeBron physically the way you can Caitlyn. It's basic biology. LeBron's 6'8", 200, what was he his rookie year, 240? I mean, he was built like a grown man at 18 years old. It's why he's such a generational talent and prospect. Caitlyn is built like the typical rookie WNBA guard, a little taller, I guess, than usually the typical point guard is, but you can bully her physically. It's not a shot at her. It's just, again, basic human biology. That's how it works. You couldn't do that with LeBron. Had LeBron been Steph Curry's size, oh yeah, you're going to see that happening. From other players, you're going to see all of that. So it goes back to my earlier point that I think it is, I'm telling you, and by the way, even some women, because I've talked about how on Wednesday's show, or Thursday's show rather, that the WNBA media is really reminding me right now of soccer diehards and baseball Hall of Fame voters. Very exclusive, if you were in our club from the beginning, you can never truly be a member of our club, which to me is the worst way to market your sport, which it's not the media's job necessarily to market the sport, but to cover it certainly in a fair and accurate manner, of course, as is the case with any sport. And again, I've said this before, and this will be my last point. I think every branch of the media has butchered the story. Has butchered it. The WNBA media, for what I just said, being very kind of exclusive. You newbies are kind of screwing it up. We liked it when it was just us diehards, when in reality, you said you wanted more viewers. You got them. As far as the new viewers, though, don't come in acting like you know everything about the sport. So both sides have been guilty in their own sense. That's what I'll say. And I don't think, again, stories like this, I honest to God don't think they're as big as is being portrayed. Does Caitlyn have a right to be irritated? Yeah, we heard it from her coach. They woke up a monster. That's what her coach said. So Caitlyn's a competitive athlete. That's how she got here, of course. And so I don't totally agree with that point, Grady, that I don't think it has anything to do with politics. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I have no clue what Caitlyn's politics are. It doesn't affect my viewing of her as a player. It just doesn't. I think if somebody is viewed as you should, and some branches of them on the media are undoubtedly claiming this, there should be no animosity towards her whatsoever. I think goes directly against human nature. I think it does. And so I've spent 22, 23 minutes on this. I get it's polarizing. I do. I don't think it's as polarizing as it should be. But to a positive note, it does go to Caitlin Clark's stature that we get just all worked up on our feelings, all of us, about a particular athlete, which, I mean, Tom Brady, it was very similar with him. Like, you couldn't talk about Tom Brady positively around his haters, couldn't talk about him negatively around his biggest supporters, right? It was very, which, by the way, Tom's career tended to be more positive than negative, by the way. He's the greatest player ever. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? All right. Transitioning back to the finals, Jayson Tatum. Let's talk about him. So, game 2, to say struggle with the shot is actually not just an understatement, but I think not telling the whole story. Is not only was Jayson Tatum struggling with the shot, he was almost looked to be in his own head a little bit. His body language I'm not going to play body language expert. I don't want to come off as that, but the body language didn't seem to be great. He seemed to be a little unsure of himself, a little hesitant. It was weird. We've seen it from Tatum before, not to this level, at least from my mind's eye in game 2. Jayson Tatum, last night, 6-22 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3-point range. But the weird thing is, you look at the rest of his box score. Oh, wow. 12 assists, 9 rebounds, had a steal in this game. Like, he was, and by the way, it was a +6, which was the, for among starters, the second best plus-minus on the Celtics. So clearly they were better when he was on the floor as opposed to when he was off of it. So let's talk about Tatum under the context of and I'm not kidding, and the numbers will back this up, a historically bad final shooting stretch. So all stats provided by our friends at StatMuse, all graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. I want to make sure I'm getting these graphics loaded. Here we go. So let's just go and put the stat right here, okay? Among guys who played at least 8 games in the finals and attempted 100 shots, Bruce Bowen has the worst field goal percentage in finals history at about 31%. Brian Shaw, 32%. Henry Bibby, 32%. Jayson Tatum, 35.4%, followed by Harrison Barnes, who I've still never quite forgiven for his performance in the 2016 finals. I love Harrison, but that was, what the heck, dude. Tatum, though, minimum 8 games played in the finals and attempting at least 100 shots. He has the 4th worst shooting percentage in NBA finals history. How about this? Minimum 8 games played and 150 shot attempts. Tatum has the worst field goal percentage in finals history. 35%. He's followed by Patrick Ewing, J.R. Smith, Lionel Hollins, Kevin Love. So historically speaking, and it's weird because if you look at his finals numbers, Tatum's shooting over 40% from 3, but from the field, he's been well below his standard at 35%. Like that's kind of what we expect from a young, like a Jordan Poole. That's kind of, even Jordan Poole shot higher percentages than that for a season. Now, again, a season finals, very different sample sizes. But, so I think, again, we got a long way to go in this series, and I'll kind of have my full reassessment one way or the other of Jayson Tatum, whether the Celtics win this finals, lose this finals. We'll see how the rest of the series plays itself out. But I think it would be, based on what we have here, 6 games in 2022 against my Warriors, 2 games in this series against Dallas. It would be intellectually dishonest to, as a guy like me who's a Tatum supporter and has been a Tatum fan, has defended Tatum ad nauseum on the show, to just ignore those stats. And when we compare him to stars who have led their teams to the finals, and Jayson Tatum, by the way, one of 6 players in finals history, I believe those 6, to lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists on his way to the NBA Finals. Luka did it. I think, did Jordan did it? I know LeBron did it. I think MJ did it. Bird might have been in there. It was a select group of some of the best players in NBA history, and Tatum did that. So it goes to, again, this is the nuance of it, where it reminds me it's very similar. Not in terms of the mentality, of him shooting the basketball, but as far as the impact, the specific impact that Jayson Tatum is having on this series, dictated off of his 2 games of play, reminds me, and please don't jump on me for this. If you want to, knock yourself out, but no, it's not what you think it is. It reminds me of another legendary player, a man I believe to be the 4th greatest basketball player who's ever played the game, who maybe one of the greatest nights of his career. He got his 5th championship, and he was horrible shooting the basketball. That man was Kobe Bean Bryant in Game 7 of the 2010 finals, ironically, against these Boston Celtics. Do you remember what Kobe Bryant did? He was 6 of 24 from the field. Couldn't buy a shot. But what did he do? I think he had 15 rebounds in that game, was as impactful as any player on the floor on the defensive end. And who made the pass to Ron Artest to hit the dagger shot to essentially win the championship for the Lakers? It was Kobe Bryant. Drew the double team, kicked it out to Ron Artest, hit one of the biggest shots in finals history. He found a way to have an impact on other guys. Am I saying Tatum is exactly that? No, because to me the difference is Kobe. We know Kobe. Kobe never took a shot in his life that he didn't think he was going to make. Whereas with Tatum, and almost to a fault with Kobe at times. Whereas with Tatum, it's, You watch him drive the ball to the basket. He's, for some reason, and it's weird for a guy his size, 6'7", 6'8", is just not getting the adequate English off the glass in order to score. And we know, again, one of Dallas' strengths of the playoffs has been their shot blockers, Gafford, Derek Lively. They've impacted the shots, but even against smaller defenders, even in transition, he is really, I don't know what the stats are on him finishing at the rim. They can't be good relative to what the average is for shooting at the rim or shooting within the paint, 5 feet of the basket, whatever. That's kind of the concern for me. As a Tatum guy, I imagine it has to be at least a little bit of concern if you're a Celtics fan. Maybe not even just for this series. If you feel confident they're going to win, you have good reason to. But moving forward, where if you are in a dogfight series, could be this series, it will certainly, imagine, sometime in the future happen. It's called the NBA. It's all competitive. That when you're in a dogfight series, and it's weird because Tatum has been so great in big game 6s and game 7s. Maybe not in the last shot, maybe not in the last 30 seconds of it. He needs to work on that. But as far as what I call full game clutch, he's better than Embiid. Lately, he's been better than Kevin Durant. I mean, so we do have to give him his due share there. But for whatever reason, in the finals, I don't know if it's just as simple as the bright lights are a little too bright. I don't know. And Joe Mazzulla made a joke about that, saying that that they asked him, the bright lights, the finals. He said, I mean, unless they're literally going to turn the lights up in the finals, it's going to be the same as any other basketball game, which I thought was funny. But I don't know if it's as simple as that. The nerves did to me show a little bit in game 1. I don't know what's up, man. And it's gonna be interesting to see how he responds in game 3, because I'm hearing the case that from Celtics fans, well, Tatum was horrible shooting the basketball and was the first 2 games, and we blew him out in game 1 and game 2. We won, I wouldn't say comfortably, but the Celtics were in control the entire fourth quarter, really the entire second half of that game. To that, I would say it's the tale as old as time in the playoffs. The role players, the others, as Shaquille O'Neal would call them, they never give you the same level of production on the road as they do at home. Boston's a little bit of an anomaly in some respects, but generally that's kind of the rule. Dallas doesn't have the home court advantage that a Golden State does, and I don't just say that as a Warriors fan, but it gets loud in there. It's a legit home court advantage. It is. And so will that impact Tatum on a level? I don't know. I think Drew Holiday won't be impacted. He's a veteran. He's been there. He's done that. He's played in the finals. He's used to that. I don't really think it's going to affect Jaylen Brown. Everybody else is kind of a question mark. And so to go to what Jason Kidd said, and Tim referenced it in the comments, and last night on the Boston Sports Summit live stream of the game, was when Jason Kidd on, I guess it was Saturday, said, casually referenced Jaylen Brown as the Celtics' best player. And was that a call out to see if, Jayson Tatum, if he shoots them out of the game, which he didn't do. He didn't shoot well, but he didn't shoot them out of the game. He didn't take shots at the detriment of the team. The shots that Jayson Tatum took were all good shots, by and large. Good looks. And so from that perspective, he didn't fall into, I guess, any sort of mental trap that maybe Jason Kidd was trying to set. Because Kidd is not the only guy. There's folks out there that do believe Jaylen Brown's the best player. What I would say to that is this. Jayson Tatum, 3 back-to-back-to-back. First team All-NBA guy. I think only Giannis, and was it Jokic? I know for a fact Giannis and Luka, because I think Jokic might have been second team in 2023. I'll have to double check that, but as far as I know, Luka and Giannis, only guys along with Jayson Tatum, unless Jokic made it all 3 years. First team All-NBA the last 3 seasons. Jayson Tatum in some of those game 6s and game 7s. Even if it was a quiet 30, it was still 30. He often outplayed Jaylen Brown in some of those big closeout games. He saved them in series against Philadelphia, against Milwaukee. So is Brown playing better in the series? Duh. Certainly on the offensive end, even on the defensive end to a certain degree. But in totality, I still think Tatum is definitely the better player. Now, Jaylen Brown may be the leader of the team. Kyrie Irving, I would argue, is probably just because of veteran experience, is the leader, the vocal leader, at least, of the Dallas Mavericks. Draymond Green, as great of a leader as Steph's more of a lead by example guy. Draymond's kind of the emotional support and the emotional sort of voice and the heartbeat of that franchise. And so if Tatum's not that, that's fine. I think it's okay to not have your best player be the leader. The 2019 Raptors, Kawhi was absolutely the best player. He was not the leader of that team. That was Kyle Lowry, in my estimation. So That's my take on that. John Rivera, Fan Perspective Podcast. What's up, John? Tatum is the most talented, but Brown has more confidence. I would agree with that. I would agree. Like, again, last night, game one, Brown seems to be more sure of himself. Again, it really may just be as simple as the lights of the finals. It's a lot. It is. And we've seen people crumble under that pressure before. Is that Tatum? I don't know. It's so weird because, again, the assist numbers are really good. The rebound numbers are tremendous. The defense has been pretty good. The three-point shooting but the overall shooting percentage, again, I can put up the stat one more time. Okay, with a minimum of 100 shooting attempts in 8 games in the NBA Finals, Tatum has the worst shooting percentage in history through 8 games of a finals career with 100 or more attempts. With 150 or more attempts through a minimum of 8 games, Tatum has the worst shooting percentage in finals history. I'm shocked that Ewing's that high, by the way. I know Akeem guarded him in the 94 finals, I believe it was. So, yeah, that was 1994 because that was the year that they dethroned the Bulls. But I'm shocked that Hakeem Olajuwon has a shooting percentage through his first 8 games, I guess, of 36%. That's kind of shocking. I mean, for a big, it is at least. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Tatum. I don't think it's like panic time. Here's what it is panic time for. So, you ever have those moments in life where maybe I tend to be, I'm not as bad as I used to be. I've done some self-work on myself on this, but I'm still not where I need to be. Paralysis by analysis. And have you ever been thinking about a situation? It could be literally anything in life. And you're just pondering it and you're thinking about it and you're thinking about it. And it's like literally, you see the light bulb go over somebody's head in a cartoon or something. It's like literally a light bulb just comes on your head. And you're like, you dummy. Why did you way overthought this? I was thinking about that today when the news came out that Dan Hurley was not going to take the Lakers job. That the Lakers offered Dan Hurley, according to reports, a 6-year contract at about $70 million. And Dan Hurley, obviously back-to-back champion head coach at UConn, I believe the best coach in college basketball. And he didn't take the job. And I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, I think Redick would be a good hire. I've been high on JJ Redick for a while. I think he would relate to the players well. His basketball IQ is high. I think it would work. Dan Hurley, the basketball IQ is really high, but the relation to players, we've seen the overwhelming majority of college coaches bomb in the NBA, have no success whatsoever, have to go right back to college. And there's James Borrego's been floated, and Kenny Atkinson's been floated, and all of this. And I've been overthinking this entire situation the whole time. And this is going to sound so simplistic, but it's true. I'm like, oh my God. Well, Bryson, you're thinking about the Lakers under the assumption that they will that they will make the right hire. They never make the right hire. Since the passing of Dr. Jerry Buss, here have been the Lakers coaches. One of them was actually, by the way, toward the end of Jerry Buss's life. We can put this stat up here. I think actually, let me go ahead and get this loaded because it's important to see the lack of success that the Lakers have had at the head coach spot in the last decade plus, about 12 years. Buss passing in early 2013, so 11, 12 years. Okay, so can we go ahead and put this up here right now? Okay, since 2012, these have been the Lakers coaches, the length of their tenure, and their win-loss record. Here it is. Mike Brown, he didn't last very long. Barely into his second season was he fired. Mike D'Antoni, 20 games below 500. Byron Scott was probably the biggest disaster in Lakers coaching history. Luke Walton, not a whole heck of a lot better, was just not good, and he bombed in Sacramento as well. Frank Vogel, who I believe to be a good coach, a great defensive coach, but the whole reason they got him is because they lowballed Ty Lue because they didn't want to give Ty Lue a 4th year when that's really all it would have taken to hire the guy who's maybe the second or third best coach in basketball. And then Darvin Ham finally, who the record is good, 90-74. By the way, they got a championship with Vogel, so it wasn't all bad. And then Darvin Ham, obviously, the record says they were good. In reality, LeBron was healthy mostly throughout these last 2 years. The same can be said about AD, which was huge for the Lakers. They won in spite of that coach. Anybody who watches the Lakers play, anybody who read the Shams report knows, oh yeah, any success the Lakers had was because of the players. It was because of LeBron, AD, Reeves, D'Angelo Russell to a lesser degree. Any of these, that was them. The lack of adjustments, the lack of feel for a game, not calling timeouts when it's painfully obvious the Lakers need to slow another team's run, almost cost them a playoff game and potentially the series against my Warriors a year ago, and just the lack of ability to connect. Steve Kerr is a great quote. I use it all the time, and I think he stole it from Greg Popovich. 10% of the NBA is X's and O's, 90% is about managing personalities. That's the league. And Darvin Ham was an F at that. And so I was thinking about, okay, like Dan Hurley, I don't really think he'd work just because I don't know if the fit in the NBA works. And he's a great basketball mind, no question. But how does he relate to the players? Given how he, relates to college players, it's a different dynamic. And J.G. Redick would relate to players, but he's never coached before. And Borrego was okay, but not great. And Kenny Atkinson's good, but more of a developmental guy. I'm like, Bryson. You overthought the entire thing. This is the Lakers. This is Rob Pelinka in particular. You've said for years, talking to myself right now, you've said for years that the Lakers are a poorly run operation, that they're too much of a ma and pop shop organization as a whole operation. Because you got the Rambus family, you got Jeannie Buss, the GM of the Lakers was Kobe Bryant's agent, and it's just Lakers. It's very Dallas Cowboys-esque. Everybody who works in the Dallas Cowboys franchise has some tie, one way or another, to the Dallas Cowboys. You want to know how the Golden State Warriors got their franchise up off the ground? You know they hired? Jerry West. Jerry West, how many ties to the Golden State Warriors? Not even close. Probably won a lot of games against the Warriors back in the day with the Lakers. And certainly against as an executive. I think Jerry West, the greatest executive, maybe in sports history, team sports history. He's got a case for it, by the way. But the Warriors were struggling. They brought Jerry West to the building. Drafted Klay Thompson. You know whose idea that was? Jerry West. You know whose idea it was to draft Draymond Green? Reportedly, Jerry West. Steph was already there at that point. Harrison Barnes. It was Jerry West's idea. Festus Ezeli, who was a part of a championship team. That was Jerry West's idea. Bring in outside. That's what the Minnesota Timberwolves did. I've been very critical of how the way Minnesota's done business, but what do? They said, you know what? We're not terribly well run. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in sort of like the brain drain type of situation. Bring in a smart guy from a smartly run franchise and see if you can put this team together. Because I'm forgetting the guy's name. I apologize. Who put the Nuggets roster together? His name's not coming off the top of my head right now. But he put the Nuggets roster together, but was unfortunately not there to experience the fruits of his labor because the Nuggets won a championship the year after he left. But he went to Minnesota, took Anthony Edwards was already there, and so was Cap, but a roster was I still think the Rudy Gobert trade was an abject failure. I stand on that. He's not a playoff performer. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you added Mike Conley, these nice additional pieces. All of a sudden, you've got a team that was 3 wins away from the NBA Finals. The Lakers are insular. The Lakers they feel like they're the smartest person in the room. We've all missed that person in our life, the person that has a rich family, right? I'm not talking about Jeannie Buss, by the way. I'm just talking about the Lakers. She's included in this, by the way, but the entire Lakers front office. The rich history, the family that kind of ran the local town, so to speak. We all know that family. And as the generations go on and on and on, and the kids begin to, the kids and the grandkids, the great-grandkids begin to take power, you sort of see this sort of pompous, arrogant demeanor. I know everything just by association of who I'm with, the family. That's how the Lakers do business. And I was talking to Barry Grant Jr. earlier, who's a big Lakers fan and has direct sources to the franchise. And he made a great point earlier today. He said that, and I'm sure he'll elaborate on his show, the All Even Podcast, subscribe on the Grid. He said that, think about this. Ty Lue did not get the job in LA in part because the Lakers, in their own weird way, which ended up being proven incorrect because of how long LeBron has ended up playing and playing well, they wanted to be penny pinchers and line up Ty Lue's contract exactly how they thought in their heads LeBron would play with the Lakers. 3 years. That was 2019. We're in 2024. That's 5 years. LeBron's still there. LeBron's still really, really, really good. Great, actually. All-NBA guy. And one could make the case they're doing the same thing with J.J. Redick by not hiring him immediately. The fact that, again, reportedly, there's some contract disputes. I'm not sure what the specific number is, if it's in terms of the years for J.J. Redick, if it's the annual salary, whatever the case may be. Could it be because they want to line JJ's time as coach up with LeBron James? Because in the eyes of Rob Pelinka, in the eyes of the Lakers franchise, LeBron has been, by all accounts, has a good relationship with Jeannie Buss. He does not have a good relationship with Rob Pelinka. Could this be Rob's opportunity? The way he sabotaged Magic 5 years ago, could this be Rob Pelinka's opportunity to say, okay, Dan Hurley just spurned me. And I wanted him. Clearly, it was well reported by Woj. The guy wanted him. The guy wanted to bring Dan Hurley in to be the next head coach of the LA Lakers. For this to be an opportunity for Rob Pelinka to say, okay, I don't have a whole lot of leverage left. What I am going to do, and I don't know if Jeannie Buss will go along with this. My guess is she probably doesn't, but it's not a guarantee. LeBron has got the podcast with J.J. Redick. They're buddies. And I could hire J.J. Redick, and if we don't get to the level, which in the eyes of the Lakers is another NBA title, if we don't get to that level, I can pin it on LeBron and say, hey, I wanted Dan Hurley. He spurned us. What do you want me to do? We brought in LeBron's guy. Didn't work. And maybe Pelinka keeps his job. Because it doesn't matter for LeBron. He's only got 1 or 2 years left anyway. Doesn't matter. It's not like he's 28, 30 years old. It's not like he's going to be here for the next decade. He's going to be gone. Become 2026 NBA season, LeBron's probably not in the NBA anymore. That might be Rob's weird way of trying to approach this entire situation. And it goes to show you, the Lakers, very similar to the Dallas Cowboys as it pertains to everybody involved in Dallas is either family of the owner or has some direct ties to the franchise, which, as we all know, it's kind of like if a fan, I don't want to call the people who run Dallas or Lakers fans, because that's none of us would do a better job, although in some instances maybe fans would do better jobs. But generally speaking, a fan's not going to do as good of a job as a professional executive of running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. That said, it's kind of like if a fan or somebody who has a natural inclination, a soft spot in their heart for a franchise is going to have rose-colored glasses on. Is not going to see their current situation or future situation for what it is, rather what they want it to be. That's the Dallas Cowboys. That's the LA Lakers. One could argue the two biggest brands in sports, along with the New York Yankees. And that's why they sit where they are today. And it's why I was thinking about this. I'm like, what was I thinking? Pelinka's going to screw this up anyway. The Lakers always screw this up in the last decade. And Kobe Bryant at the end of his career. And listen, Kobe at the end, especially post Achilles, was not the Kobe duh, of course. He was still a good player. And the Lakers won, how many games did they win this last year? I know it was in the teens. Was it like 16, 17 games? Matter of fact, I'm going to look it up right now. How many games the Lakers win Kobe's last year? I'm actually really, really curious about that. Let's see. It have to be, because I showed you Byron Scott's record. He was like 38 and 1 something. Let's see. 2015-16 Lakers. What was their record? They went 17-65 with Kobe Bryant. Not pre-Achilles Kobe Bryant, but 17 a game. I think that's about what Kobe averages last year in LA. And they've had, for most of the end of his prime, LeBron James. They've been a real start-to-finish serious contender. No more than twice. I mean, start to finish, because 2021, you can kind of put that on the injuries. LeBron got hurt with the Solomon Hill play. AD dealt with injuries. So I will give the Lakers a break there. LeBron's first year in LA, they missed the playoffs with still prime LeBron. Year 2, they won the championship. That's kudos to them. Year 3, LeBron and AD went down. Year 4, they made the horrible move of horrible moves, and I said it at the time, and that aged quite well. Bringing in Russell Westbrook and giving up a ton of their assets, very valuable assets, for a guy who was never going to fit with their roster. They were a disaster. The next year, you can certainly make the case they were contenders because the fact that they made the deals of a deadline, got to the conference finals. This year, hindsight, they really weren't because of who they ran into in the first round, the team that owns them, the Denver Nuggets. So LeBron's been there 6 years in LA, and they've been a serious contender no more than twice. Guys, Cleveland did better than that. His second stint. I truly believe 3 of those 4 years LeBron was in Cleveland, they were serious title contenders. That last year, they were not contenders, and he dragged them to the fight. I think it's the greatest LeBron's ever played in his career, is that 2018 postseason. That Cavs team was god-awful, and he got them. And by the way, could have easily won 2 of those games, the finals, against Steph, KD, Clay, and Draymond, with Steve Kerr at coach. I mean, that was quite impressive. Patrick, Smoked Ham is returning to the Bucks as an assistant. I did see that today. Is that not the ultimate Doc Rivers assistant coach hiring? Imagine a coaching staff with Doc and Darvin Ham. Yikes. Giannis, remember I said this, by the way, toward the end of the regular season, when I sold stock in the Bucks before everybody else did, when they brought in Doc Rivers. I said, and I was wavering a little bit, but as I'm a believer in, when you're proven wrong, man, you got to admit you're wrong, man. You got to fess up. But until you are, hang on for dear life. And I was close on the whole Giannis is going to ask out of Milwaukee this offseason thing. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that right now. I mean, it's one thing to keep Doc. It's another thing to keep Doc and add Darvin Ham as his lead assistant. My goodness. And Dame's getting older, and the roster in general is old. And Giannis, listen, because of his style of play, the injuries have come with greater regularity. He probably only has like 2 or 3 like amazing peak years left. Giannis, I think, he was drafted in 2013. I think he was 19 at the time, so that would make him right at 30. So he's kind of like smack dab in the middle of his prime. Man, you want to maximize that. Like, that's the time to go and get your jewelry, get your rings. And he got one in Milwaukee. If you'd have told a Milwaukee Bucks fan, hey, this skinny kid from Greece who's 6'11" is going to get you your first championship in a half century, that's a win. It was an overwhelming success. But I don't want Giannis to do, and again, he won a championship, so it is different, but I don't want Giannis to do in Milwaukee what Dame did in Portland. Dame overstayed his welcome in Portland. He did. He could have taken advantage of him still being a peak, prime, elite basketball player and helped teams win championships. Instead, he waited it out, all in the name of loyalty. I'm a believer in it's great to be loyal to the right things. If you're loyal to something that is going to come to your detriment, then you don't need to be loyal. You need to be loyal to yourself at that point. So I don't want Giannis. And again, even if he spends the rest of his career in Milwaukee, his career will probably look a lot like a Dirk Nowitzki. Stayed loyal, got a championship. Dirk won 1 MVP. Giannis got 2. It'd be a very similar career. And so, gosh, I'm just looking at this. Lakers won 17 games. Kobe's last year. That is remarkable. But they're a poorly run franchise. I'm telling you, it's like I was thinking about it and like it just hit. It literally was the Bryson. You overthought this, dude. You went. You didn't need as much analysis as you think you did. Sometimes it really is simple. Well, let's see. They have 150-win season in the Lakers, the LA Lakers, the prime basketball brand in the world, really. Although, actually, today you would argue that's actually the Golden State Warriors' second most valuable franchise in the world to the Dallas Cowboys. Thank you, Mr. Steph Curry. But the most recognized sports brand in the world is the Los Angeles Lakers. They have had a 50-win season once in the last decade. It's a poorly run franchise. And again, this isn't with scrubs. This is with end of his prime Kobe Bryant and end of his prime LeBron James. Just saying. All right, last topic of the day before we get out of here. This has been a fun show today. A lot of activity in the comments. A lot of passionate takes on Caitlin Clark and Tatum, and in particular, what I just talked about the Lakers. Let's finish the show with a game 3 prediction. If we can get the background music going on right now, that would be great to predict game 3 of the a final. All right, so Game 3 can be played on Wednesday night. We'll be back on Thursday on the show. That's why I've readjusted the Carving Up schedule to the old Carving It Up schedule prior to this football season, Monday, Thursday, Friday, because I want to do a Game 3 reaction on Thursday as opposed to just talking more about Game 3 on Wednesday prior to the game. So, Dallas Mavericks are favored in this game, but not by much, only by 1.5 points at home in what is no question a must-win Game 3. Dallas goes down 3-0 in the series. It's a wrap. Boston's going to go in and win this championship. At that point, the debate is sweep or gentleman's sweep. At that point, no more than 6 games. I would be stunned if it got to that point if they go up 3 games to none. So here's the thing for Boston. So, again, there's sort of the argument, hey, if they're playing this well with Jayson Tatum shooting the basketball poorly, how are they going to start playing once he's hitting his shots? That, to me, applies more to them at home, like to a potential Game 5. I think that argument applies, where maybe Tatum's more settled in, we're 5 games into a series, and we know the others, as Shaquille O'Neal would call them, are comfortable playing in the friendly confines of Boston, Massachusetts. On the road, I don't think that argument applies. Because A, the others don't play well on the road. That's not just a Celtics thing, that's an NBA playoffs thing. And Jayson Tatum, I don't know, is he the type of dude to find his rhythm away from home? Maybe. I mean, that has been the Boston Celtics' MO since 2022. They've been better in terms of their record on the road as opposed to home. So if maybe Tatum finding his flow on the road would actually be less shocking than if he did find it at home. We'll have to see how that plays itself out. But I don't think the others for Boston will play as well in Game 3 because I'm just going to rely on an old NBA playoffs rule in that regard. And also, I never really got touched on the show today. I'm touching on it at the end of the show here. Is the Kristaps Porzingis injury. So and again, I was on with Tim when he clearly re-aggravated that with about 8 minutes and change left in the fourth quarter. Goes up for a block, comes down awkwardly, he's limping up the floor, and eventually has to be taken out of the game to get that calf looked at, which he, of course, injured back in the first round against Miami, missed 38 days prior to having an amazing Game 1 and played pretty darn well, I thought, given the limited action in Game 2. Man, if we know anything about calf injuries, what's the calf connected to, or what's the calf near in the human body? I'm telling you, if I'm the Boston Celtics, it's a must-win for Dallas. Dallas has to have this game. If Boston gets it, hey, great Celtics, that means you're going to win the NBA Finals. You can close this puppy out. Not saying you should, give a half effort or something. Obviously, you're going to give everything you got to the NBA Finals. But the desperation is completely imbalanced, one side or the other. I would not play Kristaps Porzingis in Game 3. I'm telling you, take it from me as a Warriors fan. Kevin Durant, 2019 second round, Game 5, Houston Rockets. Kevin Durant takes a nice little classic rip through, takes a dribble, and just nothing but net, rips a baseline jumper, turns to go back up the floor, and at one couple steps, turns, hey, somebody kick me, what the heck? I thought then it was an Achilles injury. Turned out he comes back a month later, far sooner than he should have in the 2019 finals against Toronto. 12 minutes into his action, he blows out his Achilles on a non-contact injury. Was that calf injury a calf injury in May? I really don't think it was, but it very well could have been. Again, the calf is connected to the Achilles. I'm telling you, if you're the Boston Celtics, if there's one injury you don't want to screw with, it's a calf injury, especially for a basketball player, especially for a guy who stands at 7 feet 3 inches tall. You don't want to mess with this. If I'm Boston, take your chances that you can win a Game 3 without Porzingis. You won plenty of playoff games for this, okay? You didn't miss Porzingis against Cleveland or Indiana. Obviously not to the level of team that Dallas is, but you were able to win those games overwhelmingly in convincing fashion. I would sit Porzingis for Game 3. If they play him, I think you'll get a lesser version. Maybe because he is so new to coming back to the finals, less than a week removed from missing that 38 days of action, you'll see a lesser version of himself. And if you see a greater version of himself, I'm going to knock on wood that this doesn't happen, guys. But you could see something more serious happen. So either way, you won't get the impact from Porzingis overwhelmingly likely as you had in the last game and 3 quarters of this NBA Finals. For Dallas, I'm not worried about Luka. Luka's going to do Luka things. Okay, Luka averages well over 30, darn near a 30-point triple-double when coming off a loss the last 2 years in the playoffs. And they actually showed a stat during the finals yesterday that Luka Doncic's, at least points per game, is actually higher than Michael Jordan's in the playoffs when coming off of a loss. So Luka, we've known for a while that he's a great playoff performer. He has been since his first playoff game in the bubble in 2020. Kyrie Irving's the key. It's that simple. Because I think Josh Green's going to hit some shots in Game 3. I think Derek Jones Jr., I think PJ Washington, who's been a corner three master in these NBA playoffs, is going to get back to that. I want to see Dallas play more up-tempo. That's the thing. And Boston's part of it, to Boston's credit, they get back on transition quick. But if you let Boston's defense get set in the half court, it is significantly harder to score, to where Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are having to hit some heavily contested shots, and that's just not sustainable if you want to win a 7-game series, especially when you're trailing 2-0. Kyrie, back at home, the friendly confines of Dallas. I imagine he's going to spend a lot of time with his family, teammates, the whole bit. And the whole city of Dallas, Texas is pulling like crazy for him. I think it will calm his nerves. He'll be ready to go. I could see a Kyrie masterclass coming in like a Game 4. I think Game 3, he just kind of wants to have an efficient shooting game. Give me like 22-ish points on efficient shooting. Luka does his things. Dallas plays more up-tempo. Porzingis doesn't have the type of impact you would hope. You don't see the other step up on the road generally in the NBA playoffs. So for that reason, I'm going to roll with the Dallas Mavericks getting a season-saving win, 109-100. Listen, you say 100 feels low, when in reality, listen, Boston scored 107 Game 1, 105 in Game 2. You say, well, Boston shot poorly from 3. Dallas has shot worse from 3. You have to imagine with the home rims, home floor, home crowd, that's going to continue, that it's more likely to be able to, not continue, but more likely to improve as opposed to Boston having to go on the road. So give me Dallas. They have to have this game. They lose, it's over. That should say 8:30. It says 8 o'clock. I'll adjust that before I post it on Wednesday. But give me the Dallas Mavericks to cover -1.5 and win this game 109-100 and make this an intriguing NBA Finals again and set up a very, very entertaining, potentially, Game 4. So, look, I could still be... I was officially incorrect on how I thought the series would play out. I thought Boston would get Game 1. The Dallas would get the next 2. Boston would get Game 4 in Dallas, and then the Celtics would win the last 2 to win the series. Basically identical to how both the Clippers and the OKC series went for the Mavericks. That's kind of how I thought it'd play out. Because them losing Game 1 felt like a given. They always lose Game 1. It's kind of a feel-out game for Luka. So there you go. I feel confident. Honest to God, man. I pick integrity, yes, but I still think there are matchups the Mavs can expose, as I detailed throughout this show. So, that said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by, as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Thursday, not Wednesday, but on Thursday after Game 3 at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And as always, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially on the road, hopefully to 5,000 subscribers. That's our next goal after surpassing 1,000. So if you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Down there, hit that big red subscribe button, and boom, you're part of the Carving Up family. Boom, John Madden style. If you have subscribed, thank you so much for the support. It means everything to me and to everybody who's involved with Carving Up Live. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody who's interested in sports, and everybody except for your sleeping cat. Outside of that, tell everybody else you know about the show so we can grow this thing as fast as we can. Get on this Carving Up wave because it is coming. Also, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. We dare to be different at the Grid Network. Check out our audio content, our video content on YouTube and on Twitter, or as a professor of mine in college would say, the artist formerly known as Twitter. And, of course, on our Grid Network website where Patrick Brown writes some great pieces, so check his stuff out on there as well. Game 3, I'm rolling with the Mavs. I feel confident about it. I'm rolling with it. Home court is going to be very beneficial to Dallas. I think to get right back into the series, and we are set for a fun Game 4. So Dallas 109, Boston 100, and Dallas obviously would then cover the 1.5 point spread. They cover for me by the skin of their teeth in Game 2. Thank you for not fouling Boston at the end, because my guess is Boston, as well as they shot from the line, would have made their free throws and and forced Scott Van Pelt into a bad beats segment. So that'd have been brutal. But we will see you on Thursday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It's no matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us every single day. And no matter what anybody on either side of the aisle tries to gaslight you on, oh, it's not a problem at all, just ignore it. Or, oh, it's a massive problem and there's only one solution for it. Both are lies. Both are BS. Both is nonsense. Both are nonsense. It's a massive problem that there are a number of solutions that there are to combat it. So what we've got to do as citizens to keep one another safe and prevent things like what we see often every day in this country from happening. All right. See you on Thursday. Once again, Thursday, not Wednesday, but Thursday after Game 3 to react to that one, as well as whatever else is going on. Maybe the Lakers have a coach by then. I don't know. See what their next screw-up hire is. It sounds harsh, but it's true, okay? I came to that realization today. Who am I kidding? All right, we'll see you then, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific on Thursday on YouTube and on Twitter. Stay safe out there, y'all. God bless y'all. Peace out. And can we please take a deep breath on Caitlin Clark, all right? She's going to be fine. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.